Hello, everybody, and welcome to another amazing episode of Complexity Learnings, the show where we source individuals from different career fields to come and share with us about their experience towards creating the life that they truly love. In doing so, we believe that we are helping learners make informed career decisions and change their attitude towards learning for better. As always, I'm your host, Ndibo Chibase, and on today's episode, we are joined by a business coach, an author of 6 books, and a speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, sit tight as I welcome Mr. Diaz, who is here to share with us about his journey towards creating the life that he truly loves. So, hi KK, welcome to another episode of Complexity Learning. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Duo. Thank you very much, man. It's a great opportunity. Appreciate it.
Awesome. You know, they say every day above the ground is a blessing. So I have to say we are so much blessed to be sitting here, you know, and actually sharing to the world what it is to be in your profession, you know, and what it is to be KK, you know. And so now my first question to you is before I actually throw it to you, can I ask you to tell us a bit about KK? Who is KK and what does he do?
So first and foremost, KK are my initials. My first two names are Kgati and Khutjo, both starting obviously with the letter K. And my surname is Diaz, and we'll get into the origin of the surname on a follow-up podcast. Okay. I'm 42 years old. And it's sometimes a little difficult to explain exactly what my career is because it's made of so many different pieces and segments, you know. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an author. I'm a business strategist. I help businesses to grow their businesses, business people rather, to build great companies. And there are different facets to that, from personal development, to defining business strategies and helping businesses to execute that strategy, leadership, things like that. And I do a bit of public speaking. I'm a writer and so forth. However, in the last 3-4 months, I had taken up a full-time position in a company called Seed, and I'm a business development manager, employee number 1, and still the only employee. It's a fairly new company, very exciting. It's a tech startup which provides technology solutions within the informal and township retail sector. So in a nutshell, that's what I do.
Wow, I have to say that's quite an interesting career, hey? Because I mean, at the end of the day, as you help businesses develop, I'm sure you're also making a difference in other people's lives as well as in their careers, right? So now, you know, speaking of the
100%.
careers, right? You know, sometimes you can understand that, you know, when you were in primary school, what you wanted to be when you reach 42, it's different compared to what you wanted to be when you were in high school. Right. So
For
in
sure.
other words, so meaning that there's some things that started unfolding before you about the certain careers that you wanted to go into. Right. And I
Yeah.
believe that most of us are stuck in like jobs that we're not happy with because of the things that we are going through that we did not expect from that career.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
as a business coach and author of 6 books, am I correct?
Yes. Yes.
And also a speaker, right? What is it that you wish you had known before you began on those careers?
So, you know, maybe let me comment a little bit on what you said about what I thought I was going to become when I was much younger. I was such a late bloomer, right? In terms of truly understanding how the world works, how business works, and really how one needs to go about choosing a career path. And that was also, in a negative way, was complemented by, I think, what I would, it may sound harsh, but the teachers were incompetent, you know, in all the different schools and all the different provinces that I went to, because I kind of grew up in multiple provinces. And I don't remember a teacher actually giving me what was anywhere near what truly was going to happen in the times that I would then become somebody employable and so on. But that's also, I guess, it may be something that we touch on during this interview. But what I wish I knew was the importance of natural talent, natural abilities, and one's passion and interests, right? Especially when you are young. I think there are so many keys and so many, let's call it secrets to who you are that you discover when you are young, and therefore aspects of your life and your career that you should start taking into consideration, and therefore how to build the infrastructure, how to build the skills and the knowledge that's required for you to truly, live out your passion and be able to be at your best. Because when you're working off who you are, i.e. your natural talent, you perform 10 times better than someone who's doing something they don't enjoy, something they're not necessarily naturally capable of doing. So that's something I truly wish I knew when I was young. And again, you just touched on the fact that, which I truly believe that's the reason why we have more than 2/3 of employees and people just being unhappy in their jobs. I think it primarily becomes or comes from not having chosen career paths that speak to who you are and your natural abilities.
And I believe that in almost like, if not every careers, right, there's failures and there's challenges, right? And sometimes it's well, as they say that, well, those failures, they can bring pain, right? And they say it's up to you what you decide upon. What should that pain do to you? You can either learn from it, or you can either just let it break you, right? So speaking of the failures, right, so in becoming who you are, what are the biggest failures that you have encountered, and what did you learn from them?
So I've had a few too many, and maybe not too many to a point where it's really broken me, because I learned so much from my failures. For me, it's part of growth, right? It's really about failing forward. But something that really, I think, just about broke me, because I ended up homeless for a few weeks, was around 2006, 2007, when my record label just failed, and subsequently my marriage, it was all just tied together. That was the biggest failure that I experienced. I had been an entrepreneur since I was 9 years old, and in my entire life I'd only ever been in I'd only ever been employed, properly in a corporate job for about 3 years. And in my earlier years, I'd my teenage to early 20s, I'd been involved in music, and then started this record label just after having left the corporate company that employed me. And then we kind of ran for about 3-4 years, but we were just not doing it right, and I'll touch on the lessons that I learned in a little bit, but I just want to give context around just how that failure really just about nearly destroyed me. However, I mean, it could have just destroyed just anybody else, I've always felt that, there's some force that's looking after me. And so even during that time, it wasn't necessarily emotionally and psychologically the most difficult thing I'd gone through. But it was devastating, I have to be honest. It also affected my relationship with my firstborn son, who was 4 at the time. And I can still see the effects today in terms of our relationship, right? But I made sure that when I closed that record label, that I completed people's projects, because it tied to other people's careers. We ended the projects, we completed them. And then I reached out to somebody who really, helped me quite a lot in terms of reestablishing myself. But going back to the lessons that I learned, it wasn't for me. I wasn't meant to be in that industry, I was destined for greater things, at least relative to what I was meant to do on this earth. And I've since, started working, obviously way back then, which is 13, 14 years now, working with entrepreneurs to help them overcome and avoid the challenges that I faced, which was the lack of support, the lack of strategy, processes, systems, all of those things. It was really the catalyst for my career path today, which I'm truly, truly grateful for. And it's really, it's really been the discovery of my own purpose. I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier today. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite an experience, eh? And I have to say that you overcoming it, that is a good sign of you being a soldier, Right. So you did mention something about the studio, right? You said that it's something that was not meant for you, right? So
Sure.
how
Sure.
did you know that it was not meant for you, if I may ask?
So I think it was realizing how hard I needed to push every day. You know, the people that I was working with, the extent at which the daily struggle to make things happen. You know, I was living that, and it was too difficult. You know, the values of the people that I was dealing with, and I know it wasn't necessarily because of values at an individual level, but it was the values within the industry. You know, the music industry used to be, and I think it still is, defined and described as sex, drugs, and rock and roll being a big part of that industry. You know, for example, you know, health is positive or healthy, a healthy body, healthy eating, healthy habits are a big part of me, and have always been. And at the time I used to struggle to do that, you know, to maintain that. And obviously the kind of influence of hanging around with people who just use drugs anyway and anyhow, you know, it was just crazy, man. You know, in the middle, we work in the middle of the night. I can't be there for my family, with my family, which is one of my highest values. That, you know, all of those things made me realize that I was in the wrong space, but it really took the, you know, me hitting my head against a wall as much as I did for me to actually realize that it wasn't the right space for me.
And well, they say, you know, if you're not failing, you're not doing anything creative. You know, I'm sure, like, for you to fail, that was you realizing where you best fit. You know, like, I'm talking in terms of the industry, right? So, to those that would like to pursue this the same career as the one that you are in, what advice can you give them?
So, you know, there are a few things, right? And they kind of tie in together. I have to firstly say that my career is complicated, as I said earlier, you know, and I love that complexity because, you know, it stimulates so much and so many different aspects of who I am, from creativity, you know, to professional order, and the chaos of creativity as well. It's just crazy how it's all come together, which I really love, because there's never a boring day, you know. My days are always just, they may be difficult, but they're never boring. Some of them, you get what I'm saying?
Yes,
So
definitely.
yeah, it's very important to know which, you know, to know one's, I guess, one's passion, right? And again, going back to what I said earlier, natural talent, your natural abilities, you know, people shouldn't be attracted just purely by what they are seeing on television from someone having either written books or having amassed great wealth, right? You know, people shouldn't allow those things to seduce them, you know, material possessions, the fancy cars and all of those things. I think happiness is much more important. And what I've come to understand is working from a place of the gifts that either God or the universe have imparted on you, will give you a lot more happiness in your life and success in your profession. So look at what it is that you love doing, match that with your ability to do those things and the value that you can create. That space will help you identify the best career path that you should choose, because you will not, it doesn't guarantee happiness, but it increases the probability that you'll be happy and potentially much more successful, because we tend to be a lot more successful in areas, in certain areas of our lives when we are happy. You know, happiness just generates energy. It generates an incredible amount of energy that enables you to just, you know, go much harder and go much further than you would if you were not. So, and I know I'm rambling on, but choose something that you're passionate and capable of doing, you know, and speak to professionals who are in career guidance. I love my parents to bits, you know, to the end of this world. But one of the things that they advise me on, which is very logical, it's very logical. I was great in accounting, and they said, "Why don't you become an accountant?" You know, in high school, right? I didn't finish that degree. I quit. I dropped out. It wasn't who I was. Even though I was good at it, I wasn't great at it. I was good at it. You know, much more than all my other, I guess, all my other subjects in high school. You know, I loved business even back then. My mother actually taught me economics and business. High school, at least at home. You know, she was a teacher, she's still a teacher. But I would go to her and say, "Yo, mom, what's happening here? Show me how this thing works." And she's just always been there. She still is to this day. You know, she's my greatest rock and my greatest support. But going back to your answer, bro, just passion, natural talent.
I have to agree with you on that one because, you know, I believe that the moment you pursue your talents, your natural talents and passion, you're going to enjoy what you what you do, right? Because then it's just gonna come naturally. Like you mentioned, like you're gonna have that energy that's gonna keep you going, right? So without those, then that means you're gonna be one of those that are stuck in those day-to-day jobs that they're not happy with, right?
Yes.
So now well, obviously, in becoming the person you are today, there's resources that you have used along the way, and there's things that you've listened to, like be it like maybe motivational speakers, right? So, what I'm asking you is, what are the best resources that have best helped you along the way, and what have you listened to recently that have helped you?
Sure. I think my network, the people around me, you know, many people have said that your network determines your net worth. And so without having learned that when I was young, I did in a lot of cases hang around with people who were much older than me and later on who were older and wiser. And so those people were my greatest resource. You know, and again, my mother was a big part of that because she's always been there, that rock that's kind of always been there to support me. You know, again, to this day, she still is my support system, a big part of it at least. And she, you know, she also gave me one of my first books to read when I was maybe 7, 8. I forget the specific age, but I remember that the book she gave me was Animal Farm.
I've heard of that one before.
Right? And books have been a big part of me, a big part of who I am, you know, to this day. You know, just yesterday I was telling a friend of mine that, wow, I actually bought 4 books this week. You know, yes, a friend of mine suggested 3. Out of those 3, I bought 2. And then, you know, sometimes on Amazon, when you're purchasing books, it'll suggest additional books.
Oh, yeah,
and so I just bought 2 other ones, which were for free. So I'm looking forward to reading those. I can't really specifically tell you the books that made that kind of triggered who I then became in that line of you know, work, just pursuing the things that I then started pursuing proactively. But what I can tell you is recently what I read this month, 50 Cent's, Curtis Jackson's book called Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. It was such a phenomenally inspirational book. And I loved it also because it caught me off guard by surprise in terms of what I truly read. I mean, I've always loved 50 Cent as an artist. And just his story, right? I'd seen his movie. I obviously, you know, I study a lot of the you know, the people, the artists that I listen to. And as somebody who's always been in the music industry, I tend to know a lot about the artists. But listening to his book, I highly recommend it. As a matter of fact, I've just completed the book. I'm planning to do a post either tomorrow or Tuesday on LinkedIn just to share about this book. I think a lot of people could benefit from it. And a friend of mine, Kriba, suggested a book called The Book of Joy. I mean, I don't remember being so emotionally stimulated while I'm reading a book, but The Book of Joy, which is by the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, is such an incredible book. You know, and I think joy and happiness, which somewhat are 2 different things, are a big thing that we need to cultivate and develop right now within ourselves, considering just the space and the atmosphere that is all around us. So I highly recommend those 2 books. You know, they're doing some magic for me right now. So, and yeah, there's just so much else that I consume. You know, I listen to the Freakonomics podcast, which is incredible. Also, just you know, just mind blowing in terms of the stuff that you can learn about us as human beings, about business, and just how things work. And yeah. I'm also listening to the conscious leadership and conscious capitalism podcasts and videos, and I'm reading their books. Those have been great for me now in this space. I'm just not sure how, you know, how functional and practical that'd be for somebody who's still starting out. They may be a little bit too heavy, but there are tons of stuff out there that people can read. Obviously, young people can read the kind of books that I'm suggesting now. So feel free. Yeah.
Awesome. And speaking of books, I see that behind you, there's a whole lot of books there. It's like by the time you turn 60s, there it's gonna be like, the whole room is gonna be filled with books like professors, So now,
I guess.
awesome. So obviously now, in becoming the person you are today, there are people that have been influential to you, and you did mention earlier that your mother is also one of the people that have been influential to you, right? So if I may ask, are there any other people that have been influential to you?
Oh, 100%. And I may list more than three. But definitely my mom is at the top of that list. And Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, he's changed his name so many times. He was very influential to me in terms of me realizing that actually another young Black person can achieve the international level of success through his own efforts. And I'm not saying he made himself by himself. Clearly, there was so much that happened around him that helped to cultivate and to support and develop who he was. But I was pleasantly surprised, inspired, and motivated by what he was doing for other artists at the time. There were so many musicians and artists, especially in the hip hop space, that I had followed, but none of them had actually been the man behind the business, right? And now that I think about it, he's probably the single biggest reason why I started the record label in my early 20s. But he's really somebody that, and he hasn't been active in my mind and in my space for many years, but he's definitely one of those people. And I also have to mention Alon Reyes, the founder of Race Corp. He was somebody who literally, I reached out to him. We had done some stuff on his television show around 2006, 2007. And I was supporting another friend of mine. And then when my just world fell apart, he was one of the first people that came to mind. And, I had a bit of a contract on the side, and because of the space where I was in, I was literally in that space of being homeless, getting divorced. It was a mess, right? I reached out to him, and, we spent 5-10 minutes in the meeting. He opened up his home, which is his Race Corp, which was much smaller than it is today, back then. And it was a family. I'm not saying it isn't now. And he opened up his doors and, his entire just resources, and allowed me to tap into the coaches and the mentors that were in that space. And I learned so much from him. So he's somebody who's helped build who I became, today. So I appreciate Alon for that. And Dr. Tanin, the late Dr. Tanin, later in my life, in 2013 when I climbed Kilimanjaro, she was there, from sponsoring me financially, but also to making time to actually teach me how to tie my boots, how to hike properly, the equipment and the gear that I needed to climb Kili. If it wasn't for her and her friends, who were an all-female group, I wouldn't have made it to the top of the mountain. So, I really appreciate her. May her soul rest in peace. I'll always appreciate who she is, and she inspires me, even to this day.
That's awesome. Like coming to think of the experiences of the things that you've been through, I have to say, it's tough, eh? Like, being homeless and having to lose the wife, and men, when they lose their wives, they can go crazy, that on its own.
Yeah.
So now with that on top, like you being, who you are, that's, like I said before, you're really strong, eh? Like, you're really strong, and you're a perfect example to show that, what, life, like, it's going to show you flames, and it's up to you on how you respond to that, right? So judging from what you said, you responded very positively, and also that shows the importance of having people to actually inspire you, right? Because I mean, if it wasn't
True.
because of the one of those people, like the one that you mentioned, then it was gonna be something else, right? Then you
Yeah.
wouldn't have felt the way you felt when you decided that, you know what, no, I'm gonna step up. This is not going to put me down forever, right?
100%.
So awesome. So now, you know, I like using an example of a teacher, like when it comes to the next question that I'm going to ask you, right? So they say, you know, as a teacher, sometimes they say, you don't work so many hours, like you work from 8 to 3, I mean 8 to 2, and that's it, right? You know that
Mm.
teachers, they have extramural activities they need to do, they have preparations, they have markings and everything, right? So now, speaking of that, right? So is there a myth about your profession that you would like to expose the falseness of?
Sure, definitely. And I'm proactively working towards it, even though sometimes I struggle with it.
Mm,
But I think the myth that you have to go to varsity, have a degree, and have
mm,
maybe even multiple degrees and MBAs,
mm,
or an MBA at least, in order to, to be a business strategist or an entrepreneur of a high caliber entrepreneur, and to write books and all of those.
mm,
You know, you don't need to have a degree to do what I do.
mm,
And I'm not saying having one is going to work against you. I'm just saying, for all of those who are saying, yeah, I don't have the money to go to varsity. I don't have the massive resources now, or whatever the case may be. And which is actually exactly the reason why I climbed Kili, which was to show people that you don't need massive amounts of money, no experience, in order to achieve your greatest goals in life. One of those goals being, having a successful career path. It's really about a couple of principles, which I won't go into now, but it's about intention and about purpose, right? The purpose that's going to drive you versus your intention to actually achieve, pursue your purpose and achieve the goals that you set out to achieve. So it's less about the degrees and more about you, what drives you inside, and what will I guess, fuel your own personal growth. And so I don't have my highest qualification is a matric, right? And when I say I'm proactively sharing, doing the best I can to debunk this myth, is I'm still not pursuing an academic qualification as a result. But trust me, you don't want to undermine my intelligence or my know-how and my skills, because, as you said, the books, I live in my books. From the podcasts, from all the documentaries and all of those things, they've become my entertainment, and I entertain myself while I learn and I grow, right? And and by no means am I suggesting that you don't go to varsity if you have an opportunity. I think what I'm saying is, we know there are millions and millions of young people in this country who will never be able to, or rather who can't afford to go to varsity right now and a degree. So trust me, that's the least of your worries right now. It's more about developing yourself as a human being, that identifies problems and wants to solve those problems. It's that ability that's going to give you the upper hand in as far as achieving or becoming that business strategist or an entrepreneur.
Awesome, awesome. So now, if you could step into my shoes, what is it that you would ask yourself that I did not?
Wow. Where to from here, since COVID-19?
Yes, awesome. That's a great question. I have to agree. It's a great
I'm sorry to
question.
disappoint you, but the answer isn't as great because I don't know. Right? I
No, that's
mean,
a fair one.
so so I knew what I wanted to do with my life. You know, I had, let me step back a bit. So in 2019, I took part in what I thought was a dream job role and business deal that I was kind of buying into. I was investing in a multi-million rand agency. Things didn't go too well, to cut the long story short. And then that also then kind of, set me on a path that if I was anybody else, I could have easily become depressed, because it was everything that I had hoped for. I had achieved so much in my life that I had set out to achieve 10 years ago prior to that. That deal fell apart, an arrangement. And then in the next, so 2 months later, I published 2 books, one on digital transformation and another one on digital marketing. And then 2 months later, COVID-19 hits, right? It disrupts me completely, because I hadn't really reestablished my business to a point where I really wanted it to be. And then I just started searching where I was going to go. And then what I did is I kind of let go. When you let go, not because you are giving up, but because you are saying, you know what, I'm going to hold fast and stay true, meaning I'm going to hold on tight to who I am and my principles and my values and what I know. I'll continue doing that and make sure that I look at my true north and pursue that. And I'm going to let the universe take me to where I'm supposed to go now, and remember, it was at a time when I was kind of just, I had officially just entered my 40s, and I'd always seen it as a rebirth of KK, right? And then, digital transformation had always been a key topic. And I just let go, and this job just found me. And thanks to Gigi Alcock and the people I work with, Stuart Slater as well. I appreciate those people for having discovered and realized that the talents I have could help take this business to the next level. So I'm looking forward to what my new career path looks like, and I'm in no hurry to define it. I'm going to be in the present. I'm going to do the best I can today, in the hope that I build a better future, a better tomorrow.
But you're actually doing it, eh? You're doing it already, building the better future for tomorrow, right? So, to our listeners, where can they connect with you online?
The easiest place is really LinkedIn. Search for KK Diaz, and if I'm not mistaken, that's where you also found me. So just search for KK Diaz. Facebook is KK Diaz SA, one word. That's really the easiest way. And I look forward to, to speaking to people and just connecting. I love people. I love just seeing what we can do together, because, a man should not be an island, and that's the same for women as well. It's really about working together, especially if we want to go far. One of my favorite proverbs is the African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go with others. And it's really that collectiveness that's going to take us far. And just fun fact, that's the single reason why I've had my dreadlocks for this long, because they remind me of togetherness. One dread is stronger than one strand, and it's really about us being together that's going to make us stronger. So let's keep going and keep building each other.
That's awesome. Now, this brings me to my actually last question, right? So the word learning, right? Learning is well, some people think, well, you can just go to bed and then you sleep. When you wake up, you've learned something new. Or some people just think, what, I've learned it, let me just go freestyle it. Maybe I'm going to produce better results. And then at the end of the day, they're disappointed by their outcomes, right? So to you, right. So what does the word learning mean?
So, I mean, I don't think you are asking me to define the word. You mean what does it mean to me?
Yes.
Yes. And then maybe let me just try and touch on what I think it means. Learning is an equivalent to me to education, and those two mean drawing out what's already inside of you, drawing out the wisdom and the knowledge that you know, and you are able to apply. But in terms of how I see learning and how I've come to appreciate it, there are 3 values. My 3 top values. The first one is learning, right? And it's something I discovered also about 10 years ago through some work and exercises I did that were suggested by Dr. John DiMartini. He has a way, he has this exercise, which is free, actually, and just about anybody can Google it and find it, how to discover your values. And I think, what you value should not be confused with your values. Those are two different things. But my values, the first one is learning, and the second one is teaching. So they mean everything to me. I wouldn't know who I am if I didn't learn me, right? And I wouldn't have been able to achieve the things that I have achieved if I didn't learn how to apply myself and how to build my skills, how to work with people, how to take what I've learned and convert it into true value. So learning is massive for me, and I wish more and more of us appreciated that, because I look at my circles, and I mean, I have lots of friends, right? Colleagues and people I work with, but easily the most successful are those who make time to learn, to read books, to attend workshops. They have mentors and coaches in their lives. So learning is a massive deal for me.
Awesome. So now looking into your profile, right? I do understand one of the things that you do is you're the CEO of a game business, something like that, right?
So just to clarify, what I did is I retired from that position. I'm merely more a founder, chairman right now. I mean, it's a tiny business, something that I'd been doing that was much bigger prior to the last 2 years, because I decided to, pursue other opportunities. My current full-time position now is that of business development manager for Seed, the company that develops technology for for the informal retail industry. So that's what I do on a full-time basis. But as founder of A Game Business, I'm still fairly active, doing things like putting out content, and things like that. I still talk to people, and I still connect with people such as yourself through that role. But yes, sorry to interject. I just wanted to give a bit of clarity around that.
No, not a problem. You actually answered what I was actually going to ask you, because I was actually going to ask you to tell us about it. Like, what is it that you do, and what do you hope to achieve and everything? Is there anything that you'd like to add to that, though?
Yeah, sure. If you don't mind, I'll touch on both,
All right. And
A Game
also
Business.
the books that you've written, what are they about? Sorry for the interruption.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. So A Game Business has been an evolution of my consulting company that I established in 2004. So when I left Pastel, which then later became Sage, I had clients who used to seek me out and say, yes, we know you've left the company, but we still want to work with you. And so I registered this consulting business, and I kind of ran it in parallel with my record label. But, seldom. I had 2, 3, maybe 4 clients that I would speak to once a month or whatever the case may be. And then, when the record label failed, I jumped full time into that position, which was initially a payroll consulting business. And then it later added on additional services like accounting, technology services, and later on strategy and leadership development. So that's what A Game Business does. And then the books were really written from a place of, what am I learning? What am I discovering working with, township businesses versus big corporate businesses in Johannesburg and Sandton. And I took all of that, I put it in the books, and I wrote a series of books, starting with The Climb. The Climb, as I touched on, was really the climb of Mount Kilimanjaro and the principles that I learned there, prior to and post, in retrospect, looking back in terms of how I achieved that goal. And just by the way, it was a goal that I achieved with zero money from myself. And so some of the principles that I was talking about, maybe we can talk about it another time. One of them is value. Learning the value that you can share with others and share with the world is what helped me to then raise that money, which is something I think a lot of young people need to learn how to do. And then the next 3, 4 books was a series of the A Game Business series. The A Game Business Blueprint really teaches people about how to grow a business and not necessarily how to start. I think a big part of the failure in business is once people have started and they need to, that 3 to 5 year kind of gap when you've hit the ceiling in terms of your knowledge. That book and the online courses, really help people to unlock the next level. And then the next one is on marketing, standard marketing, I guess, but in the 21st century marketing. The one after that, if I'm correct, was one on digital transformation. It's called Thrive. How leaders can unlock digital transformation and grow their businesses. And one, a much smaller one called inbound marketing. It's A-game inbound marketing. And I'm very excited about 2-3 books that I might release this year. I'm looking forward to that. They're just about complete. I just need to make the time to finish them. So that's from an A-game business perspective. And from a seed perspective, all of who I've become is encapsulated in that role, from leadership to strategy, to marketing, to building a business, because this business is literally 6-7 months old. And so I'm having the time of my life in this space, and I'm backed by a company that truly not only believes in me, but it believes we share the same values and principles, at least around how technology can be used to transform the township economy and help to empower people who've obviously been disenfranchised, for as many decades as we know in this country. So that's what I do in that space. It's a very exciting space, and I'm looking forward to just the impact that we're going to have, not just with the people on the ground, but the role that we can play in South Africa's economy and in just trajectory. It's going to take us a few more years, to kind of get back to where we were. And my role now is to contribute to that.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. Hey. Right. Now that we've come to the end of the episode, so I would just want to say to you, thank you very much for coming to share with us. I do believe that, what we share can touch other people, if not 1,000, right? So, as long as we are touching people, so we do believe that myself have learned a lot from our conversations, of which I believe that others are gonna learn a lot as well. And it's been like quite an experience, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that it can help, especially in terms of getting up, not letting your failures define you, right? True. So once again, I just want to say thank you. I know that words alone are not enough, but thanks a lot, hey, and I really appreciate it. Awesome.
It's a pleasure, Andy. Anytime, man. Anytime.
All right, awesome. Right. So we'll chat further. Cheers. And thank you, and please do have a wonderful day and a great 2021.
Thank you, sir. Same to you and yours.
All right, thanks a lot. Hey.
Cheers.
Cheers. Now that we've come to the end of today's episode, we do believe that you've enjoyed this episode as always. And if you haven't subscribed or liked, please be sure to do so you are notified when a new episode is posted. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tight and continue to enjoy 2021.